Two spots from the bottom, the Los Angeles Rams. And part of this is just because they didn't have a lot of picks. They traded out of the first round with the Falcons, so they get a first-round pick next year. They get a points for that for sure. They drafted Terrence Ferguson at the top of their first pick in the second round, the Oregon tight end, who's a really good athlete. And the guys they got, I actually like. Josiah Stewart reminds me of Josh Uche, the edge rusher out of Michigan. He's a little undersized, but he's got twitch for days. And then their last two picks I'll point to, Chris Paul Jr., Pooh Paul, the off-ball linebacker at Ole Miss. I thought he would go higher than the fifth round. He fits what they do there. And then Konate Mumpfield, out of Pitt, went in round 7. If he had run 4 or 5 or better, he would have gone 2 or 3 rounds higher potentially. I talked to him at the Shrine Bowl, and his comp, my comp for him, was Deion Johnson out of the former Pittsburgh Steeler. And a lot of times my comps are off the mark, and you know this. Konate said his mom was watching the Steelers one day, and she said, "Hey, you look just like that guy." So I got that one right. What do you think of this draft class?
Yeah, I feel the same way you do. And I'm just thinking about the Terrence Ferguson pick, and I had to go back in my Rolodex and them taking, because I know how much Sean McVay loves tight ends, right? He was a former tight end coach and when he was in Washington, and so that's kind of his forte, so to speak. But then I went back in my Rolodex, and his very first draft pick as head coach with Les as the GM was Gerald Everett out of South Alabama, and they took him 44th overall, which would help give him his Jordan Reed-esque tight end in his system. And with Tyler Higbee going into the final year of his contract and dealing with some serious injuries throughout his entire career, they need that type of player readily available for him. So I understand the Terrence Ferguson pick. But like you said, they traded away the first round pick and got a first, extra first for next year, I believe. And so that puts themselves well positioned because, again, this is going to come back to the quarterback and the availability of what Matthew Stafford's going to do next year will be available for him. So Les was back to his F those picks mantra, and hopefully it's setting him up for something good next year.
Yeah, next year is going to be interesting. While you were enjoying yourself last night in Nashville, I had to do a top 10 picks for the 2026 mock draft looking ahead for HQ. And we'll see what this quarterback class looks like next year. We'll see. It won't be what we saw in 2024. It should be a little deeper than this, but a lot can change. But to your point, we don't know what Matthew Stafford's future is going to be. And if they have that extra first-round pick, and a couple of teams do have extra first-round picks, including Cleveland Browns, that may be a situation, especially if some young man, last name Manning, decides to come out 8 or 9 months from now. Things could get pretty saucy. So we'll cross those bridges when we get to it. And by that, I mean in 2 days, because you and I are going to do a 2026 mock draft on this podcast. So break out the tape. 17th on our list, another A grade for me, the Seattle Seahawks. Not quite the zigging and zagging that John Schneider does when we think he's going to go one way and he goes the other. I won't call it chalk. Gray Zabel in round 1, we knew they had some interior offensive line needs, and he's going to be a grade A teammate from day 1. And then in day 2, they got the guy that we thought they might try to take in the middle of the first round there, safety Nick Emanwari. They traded up to get him, and I can't tell you how much I love that pick. Athletic tight end to go along with Noah Fant, Elijah Arroyo out of Miami in round 2 as well. And then Jalen Milroe, QB in Mike McDonald's system. I'm curious to see how this works out. They traded Sam Howell, so Jalen Milroe is going to have an opportunity early on. Got some wide receiver help on day 2, and Torrey Horton, had he been healthy, he probably goes a little early. And then they got one of my favorite players in this draft class that I haven't really talked a lot about after the Shrine Bowl, Ricky White III out of UNLV. Didn't test well, but if you need someone to block you a punt, Ricky White III is your guy. He had 2 against Syracuse last year in 1 game. What do you think about this overall draft class for Seattle?
Same. I thought it was an A. And, I know you love it just because, Nick Eman or Nick Eman Wilson, if you want to say,
thank you. There it
was
is.
taken. It's another one of your guys. But like you said, those first 4 picks are guys that's going to come in and immediately contribute. And I know when you say, well, wait a minute, is Jalen Milroe going to really contribute? Yes. They took this guy for a reason. And especially having a defensive-minded head coach, they're going to have packages for him to work in as some part of the field. And again, my early comp was if you liked him as a quarterback, he felt like a Malik Willis type, just with physical attributes. But if you love the football player, then this guy could do some Taysom Hill things for you just because of his explosiveness and dynamic ability with the ball in his hands. So you can get creative now with your offense. And with Clint Kubiak in this offense, having spent time obviously with his dad, being an offensive coordinator and head coach. But in recent years, spending his time with Kyle Shanahan and understanding how to utilize your weapons and how to get your best 11 on the field, I expect him to do that with Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Absolutely. Finally, in our list here, as we reach the halfway point, number 16, the Arizona Cardinals. And man, Monty Ossenfort, he appears to know what he's doing. I went back and looked at my grades last year. I gave him an A+ for what they did. That was Marvin Harrison Jr., Darius Robinson, Max Melton, Trey Benson to start that draft. This time around at 16, don't be fooled by the ranking quotation marks. I still give him an A. Walter Nolan at 16, we thought they would perhaps target interior offensive line or maybe cornerback. Well, guess what they did in round 2? They got a first-round talent in Will Johnson. Then in round 3, they got an edge rusher in Jordan Burch, who looks like Darius Robinson getting off the bus, so we sort of know where they're going in that sense. Got some real value in round 5 with Denzel Burke, the cornerback at Ohio State. And the round before that, they got his teammate, Cody Simon, the linebacker at Ohio State, who, again, is insanely smart and a fantastic football player who finished strong for the Buckeyes. What do you think about this draft class, Ran?
Yeah, I felt like Monty did his thing with this one. Think about it. If Will Johnson is healthy and tested, Will Johnson could go 16. And you still get him at 47. And I think the sleeper in this whole class is Jordan Burch. Because I think if you just go physically off of what's in this guy's body, he should have been a first-round pick. Now, for whatever reason, he hadn't tied it all together and pulled it all together. But when he turns it on, he has a chance to really make some things happen for him. And because he's so versatile and his size and his mass, like he's an edge guy, but he's like 290. And so now will Jonathan Gannon be creative and maybe put him in some 4-eye situations, which will then make the guard have to make an athletic set on a guy like this and give this guy a two-way go to win. They can do some real, especially with what they've done in recent times in their drafts with the edge position, they can get really creative and move this guy around and create some mismatches. He just has to step up and accept the challenge.
Yeah, and Darius Robinson looks the same size and weight. He just has to get healthy, and then you have 2 guys on your edge rush positions creating havoc, and there's no sort of relief for right or left tackle. All right, you did work with this crew, though, San Francisco. That's next on our list. This is now the rest of these picks inside the top 5, all A+. And I'm curious about this draft class and getting your perspective on it, because you texted me when they took C.J. West, and I'll let you tell me who you feel like he's going to be once he gets to the league. Their 4th-round pick out of Indiana, defensive lineman. It started with Mykel Williams at pick 11, and we heard John Lynch say he thought he wanted to trade up. He thought he might be gone by then. That's how much they love Mykel Williams. Alfred Collins, the defensive lineman, in round 2. Nick Martin, and I've been saying this for weeks, maybe months, if he were 2 inches taller and 15 pounds heavier, he might have been a first-round pick. He gets after it. I love the way he plays. They got Curtis Rourke in round 7, the quarterback out of Indiana by way of University of Miami, and we'll see if he's the next Brock Purdy. But I wanted to ask you about the 3 defensive linemen they took at the top, and then C.J. West, because our buddy Leger Dusbel, who played for Robert Saleh, didn't love the fit of these players. Do you agree with that?
No, so Leger was texting me as well and was like, hey, man, we're kind of getting away from the scheme, of what we've traditionally known that front to be. But if you go back and you look where the 49ers struggled last year, and they struggled in their run defense. And so one thing that that the 49ers will always do is they will always use resources to make a correction, right? So if you go back and you look prior to, we had a receiving core that wasn't overly tough or didn't have dynamic ability to run after the catch. And then we go and draft a guy named Debo. And we bring him in, and then it changed the tone of what that receiver room came to be. And so they were always willing to make those changes, and to take these defensive linemen was the sign that they were making it. So if you look at Mykel Williams, what is he? He's big, he's long, he's physical, he resets the line of scrimmage. Then you look at big Alfred Collins, who in my mind is a freak. He is an athletic freak. And when he gets with Chris Kocurek is he's one of the few coaches that I will say can get it out of a guy. And so this is a big physical man that can reset the line of scrimmage as well. And then C.J. West is a carbon copy of DJ Jones, who's now with the Denver Broncos, who I think we took in the 6th round of the 2017 draft. A short fire hydrant guy. Now I do think DJ is quicker and more explosive in terms of attacking gaps. But for the fans watching this, if you want to go look at measurables and look at speeds and arm lengths, like these guys' numbers mirror themselves. And that's what I sent Ryan after the pick. And I said, this is their DJ Jones.
So they have a plan. Even DJ doesn't need to be worried.
No, not at all. And again, you have Robert Saleh back now. You still have Chris Kasarik there in the building. You still have John. You still have Kyle. There is a plan. And let's throw in RJ Gillen, one of their new personnel gurus, a guy that understands and who's been with this group since they first came in. So these guys are always aligned because they know exactly what the coaches are looking for. Now, again, the scheme evolves and it changes, and it's going to change, right? Because the scheme was initially a Seattle-esque type defense when Saleh first got there. And then it tweaked and became more wide 9 type concepts when you brought Kasarik in. So they've evolved the scheme, and this is just another evolution.